In order to survive the island, we must first have an island. To build our island, we're going to take our beach, jungle, and mountain tiles. We're going to put them in a stack. And what I like to do is I like to place them bottom first. To help ensure randomness, make sure you place your land tiles inside the bold outline, leaving a space in the middle empty for the sea serpent. Speaking of sea serpents, we're going to place them on all the marked locations. Once you've placed all your land tiles, players will take turns placing their meeples one at a time, starting from the first player and going clockwise until all of their meeples have been placed. Finally, players will take turns placing rafts along the island. Each player gets to place 2 rafts, placing them one at a time. The goal of Survive the Island is to have the highest score at the end of the game. Every meeple has a value listed underneath of it, listed from 1 to 5. There are 2 of each value per color. You must get your meeples to these dock locations in order for them to survive. Survive the Island is broken down into 3 phases. There's the action phase, the rising waters phase, and the creatures phase. In the action phase, you move adventurers from 0 to 3 spaces and get to use any abilities that you have. We'll cover those in a few minutes. Movement is when you move a meeple from one space to the next. Each movement will take 1 movement point. Any meeple that enters water must immediately end its turn, but keep in mind that you can move other meeples additional spaces as long as you have the movement points. Also, moving rafts take 1 point apiece, but unlike in the water spaces, you don't have to stop after you've moved 1 space. In this example, purple, since he is moving onto land, does not have to end his movement here, so he decides to move onto the raft. And since the raft does not count as a water space, purple is free to move the raft. In order to control a raft, you have to have a majority on it. So in this example, purple, blue, and yellow all can move the raft any way they choose. But in this example, blue cannot move the raft, but the purple player can. In the rising water phase, we flip over a tile, checking to see if it has a green or a red outline. If it's a green outline, we keep this as an ability to use later, and if it has a red outline, it spawns something on that spot. Keep in mind that during the rising water phase, you must first remove all of the beach tiles, then the jungle tiles, and finally the mountain tiles. If there happens to be a meeple on the tile that spawns in something, that meeple interacts with whatever was spawned in. So if it was a raft, the meeple is now safe on the raft. But if it was a shark, that meeple is dinner. During the creatures phase, you roll the dice and move the monster that corresponds with the symbol that you rolled. So if you got the red, you would get the sea creatures. The green will move the shark. And the blue will move the kaiju. There's a player aid to remind you of each of the phases, but they also tell you information about the monsters, like how many spaces they move, what type of terrain they can move on, and how they interact with elements in their space. The sea serpent can move 1 space, and it will destroy rafts and or eat meeples. The shark will move 2 spaces, but it will not destroy rafts. But it will definitely eat swimmers. The kaiju can move 1 or 2 spaces. It's the only monster in the base game that can move on land, but it will not eat meeples. It pushes things that are away, that are in its base. Meaning you could push a meeple into a sea monster. They are also bullies, so they will push other monsters around, so you could push the sea serpent into other players. If you're mean. Which I am. But kaiju don't like rafts, and they will destroy them. Here is a quick breakdown on what each of the tiles do. This one summons a raft underneath the tile that was flipped over. This one summons a shark, a kaiju. This summons a whirlpool. Now, whenever the whirlpool is summoned, it will sink anything that is on it or adjacent to it in the water. So in this example, the sea creature and the blue meeple are sent to their watery grave, but the purple meeple is totally fine. Now we'll get to the ones with the green outlines, also known as abilities. First, you have this one that will let you move a creature to any empty space on the board. Next, this one will allow you to take a free roll of the dice, essentially letting you move monsters out of sync. This will let you move any empty raft or raft you control up to 2 spaces. This will let you move any swimmer you control up to 2 spaces. Yay, he made it. The spray is the only ability you can use outside of your move turn. It will let you remove a shark or a kaiju that's landed on your space from the board. And finally, there are these volcano tiles. These are only in the mountain tiles, and once you get 3 of them, the game is over. Any meeples and monsters left on the board are destroyed, and whoever has the most points wins. Survive the Island. One of the fun things about Survive the Island is picking where your high value pieces go. Do you put them on mountains where that will be the last part of the land to sink, or do you put them closest to the dock locations on the corners, hoping to put them on a raft and get them to safety before somebody can maneuver a sea creature in front of you, blocking your path? Also, there's this really fun diplomatic element to the game. If you watch our playthrough of it, I played very peacefully and started playing players off of each other. So I'd be like, hey Chris, remember when Olivia was mean to you? Hey Brooke, you don't like Chris, go ahead and attack him. Olivia, Chris just had one of your people eaten. And by the time they realized what I was doing, I essentially won the game. The way the island sinks in the game is really, really clever. These pieces have different thicknesses about them, which is a way the components reinforce a mechanic. With the sand pieces being the thinnest, the mountain pieces being the thickest, with 2 C's obviously, and the forest falling in between. There's this fun little element where you flip over a piece under your opponent's meeple, hoping to spawn in either a shark or a kaiju and get a free kill without having to roll the dice. And it's red, but then it's a raft. You helped your opponent out. But there are those moments where, boom, a shark appears and it gobbles up sometimes 2 or 3 pieces. It's great because anytime a piece enters a space with a monster, it activates the monster's interaction ability, which is conveniently listed on these player aids, by the way. These are really well done player aids. There's they show you what the monster is, what color dice, what symbol in the dice it corresponds with, the number of movements, the terrain that the monster can move on. I've already broken down this player aid a bit in the tutorial, but I will say this is a really well thought out player aid. It gives you the information on the monsters. It goes through your turn as a quick reminder. And at the back shows you what each of the hexagons do, so you don't have to awkwardly ask, hey, the one with the splash, what does that do again? Also, it's built to look like a old treasure map with the shredded edges in the stained paper. This is the thing about this game that has stood out to me over multiple playthroughs, is they just put thought into every little part of this game. They put little seagulls on the map. They didn't have to do that, but it just shows that extra bit of love, and there's that sunken ship. I love visually interesting board games. They can give you something to look at when you're waiting for your turn. The problem is some games fall into that trap of making their board games a little too visually complicated, but they found the sweet spot here. One of the questions I'm curious about is why are there 2 docks on this one side here? It's the only corner that has 2 docks on them. I wonder if it has something to do with the way the math worked out. I don't think there's an advantage to taking that side. I've never noticed one, at least. This game has really good pacing. What you find is when you're first flipping over tiles, it's more just, oh, we're having fun. We're trying to get jabs at each other. We're trying to make sure we can ruin each other's day. But once you get to the forest tiles, the game's pace really picks up. At that point, you've removed several of your meeples from the game, and so there's a lot less choices. There's like you're kind of gathering them up. You have that one guy that's been in the ocean since the first part of the game, and he's trying desperately to get to the dock, but he can only spend 1 turn moving, and oh no, there's a sea serpent right there. But there's this really cool element that expedites the game. These tiles are acting as a countdown, but once you start your turn with none of your meeples on the board, you will start flipping over 2 tiles, which is fun because if you have vowed eternal vengeance on one of the other players, you can focus on them like, oh, you still have meeples on your forest tiles. I'm going to flip over all those, hoping sharks will come in to gobble you up. It's going to be a raft though. Once you've cleared all the forest tiles, you get to the mountains. And at this point, most of the meeples are gone. There's just a handful. Maybe 1 player's completely cleared his, or 2 players. So it's a final, there's this final rush between the last 2 players. There are 8 of these mountain tiles in the game, and 4 of them have the volcano. Once you reveal 3 volcanoes, the game is over. The island is sunk, and anybody left on the board is destroyed. And the other 4 are whirlpools, so anyone next to a mountain tile is in trouble. Once the island has sunk, the game's not over yet. Everybody starts counting their people who survived. We have found for us, we put our survivors on this little patch of, on this little beach. You know, they're having a beach party since they survived. And then we keep our dearly departed off to the side. It's a 3. That's bad, not the worst, not the best, but you don't want to lose 3s. Then finally, you add up your scores. Usually you have a good idea who the 2 winners are going to be, like between the 2, because some people have gotten a lot of their guys killed in the process, but you never know. And everybody counts up their final score. You say, well, I got 10 points. And someone else will say, well, I only got 8, which that would be a terrible game if you're getting 10 and 8, but that could happen. And someone grins and says, I got 11. And then you think, I could have sunk in that 1 meeple and it would have made the difference in this game. That's how a game of Survive the Island usually goes. My son absolutely loves this game, so it makes it to our table quite a bit. So much so that we bought the expansion, the Monster Pack. The Monster Pack comes with piranhas, which are sand tiles that you would put down, and once they pop up, they quickly spread, devouring anything in their path. There's eggs, which you would roll the dice to bring in whatever color it chooses, which adds just fun chaos to the game. Then it adds 3 new monster meeples that come into the game. It's the Kraken, the Pterodactyl, and the Whale. The Kraken will move 1 space, but then after it resolves any interaction it has on its space, it will then reach out and grab somebody from another space. They don't even have to be in the water. The Pterodactyl can fly in any direction in a straight line. They can choose to stop in any space as long as the space has at most 1 meeple, which means that it's picking off people 1 at a time, and you can still stop on empty spaces, so you can try to line up the Pterodactyl for shots. And finally, the whales can move up to 3 spaces, making them the fastest monsters in the game, but they don't need anybody. But they do destroy rafts. It's fun if you can get a whale really early on, just to swim around busting up rafts, making everybody hate you. It's a good way to lose the game, but it's fun to make everybody hate you. So if it wasn't obvious, we really like this game. We highly recommend it to any board gamers out there. It's not super expensive either, which is nice. When it's not uncommon to pay hundreds of dollars for games. Even without the expansions, we recommend this game. The expansions add chaos to it, and those are fun, but I still think this is well worth getting and playing without the expansions. But now that I have them, I'm pretty happy to include them whenever we play. The art supports the game mechanics and the component designs. I don't know. There's no criticisms that have jumped out to me that are obvious. There's no, I will say with the expansion with these stickers, I don't know how long these stickers will last on the game, but that's an expansion problem, and if I needed to, I could put a marker on them. Seriously, why is there no green? I'm almost taking a point off of this just because of that fact. The pacing is great where it starts out where it is kind of fun, and then as the game progresses, there is tension and you start to feel, and then usually by the end, everybody's quiet because they're like, maybe if I can get that one last guy to safety, I could turn the tide to my favor. I'm giving this game a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's really fun to play. It's really enjoyable. It's a little simple, but it doesn't have to be more complex. It sets out what it meant to do. The thought and care that's put into the art direction, the components, and everything is really refreshing. And this is just a fun time to be had. So, Dice Brigade recommends it. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, take the initiative and don't get eaten. Nom 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 nom.